In Washington, a sweeping revision of Donald Trump's signature tax and spending legislation is quietly gaining traction. Publicly, it's being marketed as an extension of the 2017 tax cuts, a move to protect working families and reignite economic momentum. But beneath the polished headlines, something more complicated and far more consequential is taking shape. Tucked deep within the Senate's updated version are subtle but significant changes that could reshape not just how much you pay in taxes, but how you retire, access healthcare, and even how your local community funds essential services. And the kicker, many Americans still don't know what's about to hit them. At first glance, the bill seems like a win for the middle class. The extension of the 2017 tax cuts means lower rates continue for a while longer. The standard deduction increases as well, meaning more of your income escapes federal taxation altogether. In theory, that means more money in your pocket. But scratch the surface, and that financial relief starts to look a little more selective. One of the most controversial revisions reintroduces a strict cap on the SALT deduction, state and local taxes, resetting the limit to $10,000. For residents in high-tax states like California, New York, or New Jersey, this is more than a budget line. It's a financial gut punch. These are the people who previously relied on those deductions to ease the burden of high property and income taxes. With the cap reinstated, many households could face thousands in extra taxes, even as federal rates fall. Meanwhile, changes to Medicaid are drawing sharp criticism from healthcare advocates. The Senate's proposal includes deeper cuts than the House's version and introduces more rigorous work requirements for eligibility. In theory, it's framed as promoting self-reliance. In practice, it could mean added bureaucracy and the risk of losing coverage for millions, including the working poor and caregivers who often juggle part-time employment while managing family responsibilities. Rural hospitals, many of which already operate on razor-thin margins, warn that this could push them closer to collapse. As more patients lose access to Medicaid, unpaid emergency care becomes the burden of already strained institutions. The consequences ripple outward, first to local communities, then to the national economy. Yet it's not all cutbacks. For seniors, the bill introduces an expanded deduction up to $6,000 per person for those over 65. This is designed to provide some relief for retirees facing rising medical costs. But here's the caveat: the deduction phases out as income increases. If you've saved diligently or have multiple retirement income streams, you might find the benefit sharply reduced. In a way, it penalizes responsible financial planning. The same delicate balance applies to Social Security. A portion of benefits for low and moderate income retirees would no longer be subject to federal income tax. On the surface, that seems like progress, but the broader issue remains unaddressed. Why are Social Security benefits essentially a return on your own contributions taxed at all? Critics argue it's a quiet form of double taxation, one that disproportionately impacts seniors who depend most on stable income. Incentive shifts are also baked into the legislation. For workers in the service industry, think waiters, bartenders, or delivery drivers, tips and overtime pay up to certain thresholds could become temporarily tax-free. That could mean more take-home pay for people who often work unpredictable hours. But there's a catch. To qualify, workers must provide meticulous records. One wrong number, and the IRS could come knocking. And then there's a surprising addition that few expected, bringing back the ability to deduct interest on car loans, up to $10,000. This hasn't been seen in decades. For middle-class families financing vehicles, that could mean hundreds saved. But it also primarily benefits those buying newer, more expensive cars, those already in a stronger financial position. Once again, it's a policy choice with unequal outcomes. In contrast, green energy tax credits targeted for repeal by the House are preserved for now. Solar, wind, and battery production initiatives will continue to benefit from federal support under the Senate's proposal. This means that in energy-rich states, local job markets could stay buoyed a while longer. But climate experts caution that this move may be more political appeasement than climate strategy, especially without stronger emission targets alongside it. All of this comes at a steep cost. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the Senate's version of the bill could balloon the federal deficit by $2.5 trillion over the next decade. That's roughly equivalent to the entire GDP of France. Proponents argue that the economic boost justifies the debt. They say now is the time to fuel growth, reward work, and strengthen families. Opponents argue it's fiscally reckless and deeply inequitable, trading short-term relief for long-term consequences that future generations will be forced to pay for. And looming behind the legislative battle is the political calculus. Trump is banking on this bill to cement his legacy, a final act of economic populism designed to energize his base. He frames it as proof that he hasn't forgotten the everyday worker. But within his own party, fractures are forming. Senators from high-tax states are pushing back against the SALT cap. Fiscal conservatives are alarmed at the size of the deficit. Healthcare advocates are warning of fallout in Medicaid-dependent regions. In truth, nothing is settled. As of now, negotiations continue behind closed doors, with amendments and counter-proposals flying back and forth. The bill could change again tomorrow or be torpedoed entirely if internal factions can't reach consensus. For everyday Americans, this uncertainty makes planning harder than ever. What this bill ultimately means depends on your state, your income, your age, and your health status. If you're a retiree, it might mean modest relief. If you rely on Medicaid, it could mean more paperwork or losing access to care entirely. If you're middle class in a high-tax region, it might mean paying more. Even while hearing promises of tax cuts on the news. This is why financial awareness isn't optional anymore. These policies won't just shape the economy, they'll shape your budget, your choices, and the trajectory of your future. Now is the time to consult professionals, stay updated, and question the narratives being sold. Because no matter how beautiful the bill sounds in a speech, the real beauty or danger is always in the details. As economist Richard Musgrave once said, budgets are not just economic tools. They are expressions of moral choices. So perhaps the most urgent question we should ask isn't what's in the bill but who it's really built for.